Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, the podcast where we bring you inside the world of joint ventures, strategic partnerships, and powerful collaborations. Whether you're looking to expand your network, find new referral partners, or scale your business, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Welcome back to another great episode of Partnership for Profits. My name is Will Brooks. I am your host for this afternoon. My guest today has spent his career standing up for people when life throws them its worst curveballs. He's a New York personal injury lawyer who knows how to fight in the courtroom, but also knows how to guide clients through some of the toughest moments of their lives. We've got Ira Slavit here today. Ira, welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you on. Glad you could join us.
Thank you, Will. Great to be here.
Yeah. So Ira, you are a PI attorney in New York. Are you in New York City or would you see?
My main office is in Midtown Manhattan, right across from Grand Central Station, and I have an office on Long Island in Mineola in Nassau County.
Okay, cool. So let's talk. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me a little bit about the firm. Is it multi-generational? Is that right? The law firm is?
Right. The firm was founded by my grandfather, Levine, in the early 1930s. And then in the 1950s, the story is his wife prevailed upon him to allow his son-in-law, my father, to join him and be a partner-in-law with him. So they started that in the late 1950s. And then in 1985, or 1986 actually, I joined the firm. It was a 3-generation firm, my grandfather, my father, and I had the absolute privilege of practicing with my grandfather for the first 10 or so years of my career.
That's really cool. Very cool. So you guys are approaching 100 years as a law firm.
I suppose you're making me feel a little old, but
no, not you. I mean,
no. I can do them. I gotcha. I'm just hadn't thought about that.
Well, yeah. Was it 1930 when it started? The year 1930, or was it in the 30s?
It was. I found if you go online and check the Fordham Law School, you can find him in like the graduating class from I think 1931.
Okay.
And I think he pretty much started out on his own, kind of right after that. So.
Well, you guys are approaching 100 years as a law firm. That is quite an achievement. That's amazing. Is there a 4th generation that's going to be a part of the firm?
Only if one of my daughters marries an attorney, but other than that, I don't think so.
Okay, very cool. Well, that's amazing. That longevity for the firm to have been around for that long. That's quite impressive. Very, very cool. I want to ask you a little bit about personal injury. We work with a lot of personal injury lawyers, and I know a big part of what you guys do is educating the public on what they need to know with regards to whether you've been hurt in an accident or whether you got hurt somewhere else. Doesn't have to be in a car, and keeping them educated. And I think that there's a lot of misconceptions out there about personal injury lawyers. I used to have them for sure, but I've been working in this space for several years now, and I have the utmost respect for what you guys do. You really do help people, it's not the money grab that I think a lot of people think it is. There's a real service that is being offered that you guys do, the personal injury lawyers help people with. What do you think is what's the one thing that most people misunderstand about personal injury law and personal injury lawsuits, and why could that hurt someone's case if they're coming in and they've been injured?
So I would say the biggest misconception is there are people who don't realize that to be compensated, you have to prove that somebody else is at fault. A lot of people come in and say, I got hurt, and they think just because they got hurt, they're entitled to money, when in reality, that's not the case. Workers' comp would say that is true. They just have to be hurt on the job. So that can cost, some examples of where that could cost somebody their whole cases. Right off the bat, they're contacted by an insurance company or an investigator by the potential defendant, and they go give a statement because they figure it's an easy thing. They got hurt and they just have to tell their story. and they'll bring the wheelbarrow with the cash. It doesn't work that way. In fact, quite the opposite. Oftentimes, when the reason that the insurance company reaches out so quickly is they want to see if maybe they can get a recorded statement. And if you give a recorded statement and you haven't retained counsel, that statement can be used against you. And little nuances in what you say could absolutely cost you the case. I'll give you a quick example if you want.
Yeah, please.
Someone in a car accident maybe says two vehicles or a pedestrian hit by a car. The car came out of nowhere and hit me. Well, cars don't come out of nowhere, right? They don't rise up from beneath the roadway. But the implication you say this, I never saw. I didn't see the car. Well, then why? But why not? You're supposed to be looking. So it's just an expression. And if you really drill down, if that person comes into my office and I drill down with them, what they really kind of mean to say is, yeah, I saw the other vehicle, but it was really too late for me to do anything about it. That's completely different than I wasn't paying attention.
Yep, good to know. I've heard that many times from many of an attorney. So how often do you go to court in the cases that you try, or is it not as do you do a lot of trial work, or is it not as much trial work?
Most of the cases settle. I mean, I think the reality is most clients want their case to settle, not for anything, but there's that saying, right? A bird in the hand. Because trials they're live, they're like live theater, and anything can happen. And, right, you watch TV shows and the judge says to the jury, disregard, how do you really do that? So people really like certainty, but we never take a case with the idea that we're going to settle it.
Right.
The idea is you have to prepare for trial, because you never know. The insurance company might not want to settle the case. And if they know you're not ready for trial, they know eventually you're going to have to take whatever they offer. So we're in court a lot. We have to move the cases towards trial, but most of the cases settle because there's uncertainty on the other side also.
Right.
They could get covered,
So in your many years practicing law, have you had any real surprising moments where something has completely changed the trajectory of a case, whether it's in court or maybe it's, at some point where something comes out where it's like, oh, here's the real thing that's just gonna flip things for us. Have you had those kind of aha moments ever?
I had it a few times, cross-examining experts from the defense.
Right.
One particular example, we had a case where a tree fell on a motorist driving on a parkway, and the defendant brought in an expert arborist. There was no trees, maybe only one that could have maybe hit the roadway, but nothing like that. And then our expert had spoken about a particular tree, said it was a maple tree. And I asked the expert, were there any maple trees? So I was just trying to get him to confirm some of the things that my expert said. Oh, that maple tree. Yeah, that was the tree, that one tree that could have possibly fallen onto the roadway. And then I got him to basically admit that all the problems with that tree that my expert arborist said were true. And the reason why, and to confirm that those problems with the tree made it more susceptible to failing. And that's why it should have been removed before it fell.
Cool. So you got the expert to basically flip. That's great. I love that. How have you seen technology, especially in mediation, transform the way PI cases are being resolved over the years?
Well, the biggest change really is with many things with COVID. We used to do all the mediations, just like depositions, all in person.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, the last time we did a mediation in person was because the defendant, insisted on it. But you can't hardly even get a mediation company to do something. It's hard to get it in person because it's just so much easier to do it. And truthfully, I was very skeptical that it would be as effective on Zoom, but somehow it people adjust and it does work.
That's what I was going to ask you, is if there's a marked difference between doing it in person versus, doing it like we're having this conversation right now. Is it better? Is it better in person, or is it, is there not really a difference?
It seems to not make such of a difference. But one thing that I keep still have the same as before is I always, unless it's impossible, I always have my client with me. Like maybe not in the same room talking to the mediator, but
Right.
when I'm conveying what's going on in the mediation, I'm speaking to my client in person. And that was true before when we were at a mediation office or in my office. I have the client here so that I can speak with them in person, because that is it's much better that way. And it also lets the client see that this is really something going on, instead of me just calling them up and throwing numbers at them.
Right. Very cool. So 3 generations of law. What's the biggest lesson that was passed down that still shapes how you are practicing today?
Well, those first 10 years or so with my grandfather is really where I learned, the nuts and bolts of
Right.
personal injury practice. And a lot of the things that he taught me still continue. In fact, I've preserved a lot of the types of letters that he would write by making templates, out of them. But he understood the mindset of clients, and he understood, like what you were saying earlier, that clients really, they rely on a lawyer to accomplish something for them. And little things like the way you treat clients, like sending them letters, which I think actually is even more important now. He says people like, I got a letter from my lawyer as opposed to sending an email.
Right.
So, yeah, I think things like that, but a lot of it isn't that different. Technology is different, but the basics are not.
Just treating people with respect, showing up for them, advocating for them, taking care of them.
Yeah,
Absolutely. So I know I'm gonna keep harping on the fact that the firm has been around for so long.
sure.
Things have changed, right? As far as how firms market themselves, how they're getting themselves out there. You mentioned to me before we started on the podcast here that you guys have been doing a lot more social media content, shooting video for social media. Um, there's a lot of lawyers out there who are doing that. A lot of them are doing the typical, hey, if you've been hurt, call me, I'll get you paid, that kind of stuff. Same kind of stuff you see on television commercials. You see a lot of that stuff in social media as well. You mentioned that you guys are trying to do things a little bit differently. Talk to me a little bit about the strategy you guys have put into place with regards to social media marketing here in the last, when did you start doing that as well? Like, I'm curious how long you guys have been doing
Only
it.
within the last year or so, but we've
Mhm.
been pretty aggressive about it, putting out videos. I actually record them in my house. They're like a minute long, and I pick a topic. I try to pick something topical that might be interesting or educational to the general public, that usually has something to do with road safety. So one of the things I do is there's a newsletter that comes out, new rules proposed in New York City Council. So, for example, they've got new rules proposed. One of the banes of city living is getting knocked down by a bicycle delivery, uh, and not being able to identify who knocked you down. They ride off and
They're gone. Yeah. Yeah.
so there's going to be a hearing in September where there's a whole new regimen that they're coming up with, where the bicycle messengers are going to be issued ID numbers, and the restaurants or businesses that employ them are going to have to keep rosters with the names, the ID numbers, give them ID cards. They're going to have to wear these jackets that reflect the name of the business and the identification number on the back. So I guess if you're lying on the ground, you can, maybe it's like getting a license plate number. They're going to make bicyclists take road safety courses. So I try to talk about something like that, let the public know, and then I'll kind of transition into, by the way, this is the kind of
A call
law
to action. Yeah.
that we do.
For sure. So what kind of results are you seeing from that type of marketing?
It's it's kind of ego building because I go and the people that I know will tell me, I was scrolling through my feed and you popped up. I don't know why. And then they tell me about a video, or I walked into the local bank branch just last week, and somebody says, "Hey, Mr. Slavit, I saw your video." So it seems to really be terms of brand recognition. It's really getting out there,
And the
and
beauty of it is you don't have to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for that visibility. If you figure out how the algorithm can work for you, you can make it work for you without dropping thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on advertising. So it's a beautiful thing. I love it too.
yeah, and I enjoy it because, like I said, I kind of picked the topic, so I'm trying to think what might be interesting. And as you said, it's not just like harping on like a quick 30-second typical TV commercial with the arms folded. I'm the toughest lawyer you ever met.
Have you guys done any television advertising at all, or a radio or anything like that? Have you done any of that kind of advertising for your firm?
We over the years we've done some radio and some TV, and they both actually at different points have worked, and then at different points they've kind of been a waste. So
Right.
But now it's kind of interesting because you have different you can do TV commercials on streaming platforms.
Yep.
There's a lot more variety and possibly target your audience a little bit differently than just throwing it generally on broadcast TV.
That's the beauty of the social stuff too. Is if you do decide that you wanted to take some of these videos that you've been creating, and you wanted to put some money behind them, you could put $50 behind a video and really target a very specific demographic. And the social media channels will put that in front of the people that you want it to go in front of. There's really nice ways you can really nail down exactly who it is that you want to get in front of. Although I know with personal injury, you need to be in front of everybody, right? Anybody can get injured. It's not limited to a certain age group or a certain demographic. So, but that's great. I love hearing any attorney who's taking advantage of social media. Like I mentioned to you before we got on, that's what we do. So, and we're always imploring attorneys to create content. It's super important. So, kudos to you for doing that. Love to hear the fact that you guys have done that. You also mentioned to me that you are very involved with the Nassau County Bar.
Yes.
And did you say you were on track to be president? Is that something you're shooting for?
So I am the secretary
Mm-hmm.
As of this past June, and it's a 5-year ladder. So the key is to get nominated and elected as secretary, and then you should move up the ladder to treasurer, vice president, president-elect, and then president. So I'm very excited about that. I've been involved with the Nassau County Bar Association for a long time, been on the board a couple of times, won some awards from them, from some of the community relations and public education work that I've done with them. And I was chair of the Plaintiffs Personal Injury Committee. So I like growing the organization, and I like making membership in the organization really valuable for the members,
Right.
and bringing things out to the community through the community relations. We've done some interesting programs. We actually have a mock trial competition for elementary schools. There are 4th and 5th graders, and the courts are so nice about it that they actually get to do their mock trials in the Nassau County Supreme Courthouse.
Oh, cool.
But you should see these. I've gone and I've seen them, these elementary school, and they'll cross-examine and they make objections, and some of them are really good.
Hey, you got to sign them up. Get them while they're young. Because I have heard from a friend of mine who he's an attorney, but he does legal consulting. He mentioned to me that the number of new attorneys coming into the field is shrinking. Do you know that to be true? Have you heard this stat that there's not as many people coming into the practice of law as there was at one point in time?
That I haven't really heard. The law schools seem to be churning out, full classes. Um, that's interesting. I had not heard that.
Yeah, he said, I don't remember the exact numbers, but he had mentioned that there's not as many people coming into that field as there was, say, 10 years ago. So yeah, if now's the time, right? If you're going to come in, like, because there's going to be a certain number of people who are going to be retiring, and there's going to be there's spots that are going to open up. So very cool. Why has there been challenges with getting more involvement from the members into the Nassau County Bar Association? And if so, what are some of those challenges, and how are you overcoming those and getting a higher level of involvement from the members?
So COVID really, like everything else, did a number on things.
Yeah.
But the hardest thing, and I think this applies not just to young lawyers, is that they don't understand the benefit so much of in-person networking. They think if they're communicating on social media that they're networking, and it's not the same.
Right.
And so that's one of the challenges I think that we have. Someone, to quote someone, people you have to meet the people behind the profession, right? Lawyers are just people, judges are just people, and if you're a young person and you start to meet those people and you start to maybe have a relationship, maybe you're doing a program together, like a CLE, continuing legal education program. You're working on something together. You're not working judge lawyer. You're not equals. It's still a judge, but
Right.
you start to develop personal relationships. And I find that when you feel though you develop those relationships, it makes you feel more confident in a courthouse, even if you're not in front of a judge that the fact that you've cultivated some relationships with judges just makes you feel more comfortable. And I think that level of comfort makes you a better lawyer and helps you do a better job representing your clients.
I think that applies across all professions. I don't believe that is just limited to law. That's good advice for anyone. Is in-person networking is so incredibly valuable. It makes you a better listener. It makes you a better speaker. And it just makes you a better people person and in general. So that's good advice for anybody. Definitely good advice for attorneys, 100%. But I think that's something that everyone can take into account in their lives. I agree. I love the in-person networking. There's no replacement for that than being in a room with people and face to face. It's a powerful thing. I want to talk before we wrap up here, Ira. I want to talk a little bit about legacy and the impact that you want to leave when you think about that kind of impact. Not that you're anywhere close to being done, but when you think about the impact that you want to leave beyond winning cases, what do you envision? What do you hope that your clients and your colleagues remember about Ira and you as a person and working with you? What's the legacy you're hoping to leave behind?
I think there's a certain consistency of personality that's important, and I think that has something to do with why I was able to become secretary at the Bar Association. It's not just about the results you get in court. It's about how you said earlier, how you treat people. And one of the things that I do occasionally is I mediate cases for the courts. And I think the reason I can do that is people don't, on the other side, the defense side, don't necessarily look at me, oh, he's just a plaintiff's lawyer. He's going to just favor the plaintiff, and I have no credibility with them. I think, credibility, I guess now that I'm thinking about your question, credibility is probably the most important thing, because if you have a reputation, I think, as being a credible person
Mm-hmm.
and a straight shooter, that's, I guess, what do I want people to think about how I was as a person, how I was as an attorney? That's what I want them to think. He represented his clients, but he did it the right way.
All right, last question. Let's say I'm a new attorney. let's say I've been practicing for, I don't know, 7, 8 years, and I'm ready to go open up my own shop. If I'm starting my own firm today, give me the best piece of advice you could give me as an attorney about to open my own shop. What's the best advice you have for people that are looking to do that?
So I will answer that question and tell you about something that I've just started to do in the last few years, and I should have done it much earlier, is you have to look at your practice. Yes, you're a lawyer. Yes, it's a profession. You have to look at it as a business. You should, and you should either get a personal attorney coach, or you should start going to business of law programs, or start joining group coaching, or just pay attention to that aspect of it. Because if you think you're just going to start by yourself, maybe with one person, it's going to be very hard. You really have to think of it as a process, and maybe you need some other people to help you so you don't end up working, 100 hours a week.
Right.
So I would say that would be my advice. Don't look at it just as a practice, and
business.
Look at it business, but get help. Like from people. Like, don't just read books.
I think that goes right back to what you were saying about networking. I think it applies there too, right? It's the same kind of deal. You have to invest in people in your life.
Yes.
So I love that advice, Ira. This has been a great conversation. I've really enjoyed speaking with you, and I really appreciate you dropping some nuggets of wisdom for us out that are.
I appreciate that, Will. It's been great speaking with you as well, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Before we wrap it up here, Ira, let people know where they can find you, where they can find the firm. So if anyone is in the New York City area, and then they are in Nassau County and they've been injured, how do they find you guys?
We're on the web at newyorkinjuries.com. You can either spell out the New York or not. Phone number in Manhattan, 212-687-2777. Long Island, 516-294-8282. And I'll give you one more little nugget. My children, none of them are gone to law school, but we have our little tagline for all the social medias that my daughter came up with, which is "Let them have it," called Levine Slavit.
I love it. That's a great tagline. And let me tell you, that website address that's $1 million website address. So good on you guys for getting that. New York Injuries. That's fantastic. So Ira, again, thank you so much for coming on and joining us. And folks that are watching this live, we appreciate you tuning in today. And if you're watching the recorded version of this, we also appreciate you guys checking in. Make sure you give LeDuc Entertainment a like and a follow on our social media pages or on YouTube. And we'll be back soon probably on Monday with another episode of Partnership for Profits. Ira, this is great. I hope you have a great weekend. And
thank you. You too.
Soon. If you can hang on for just a minute, but once we get off, I want to talk to you a little bit offline. But we'll wrap it up here. So thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Partnerships for Profit. We hope you've gained valuable insights on how to form profitable partnerships and take your business to the next level. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Got a partnership story to share or someone you'd like to see featured on the show? Reach out to us. Until next time, keep building those partnerships for profit.